The lights in the HBO studio were sharp brighter than usual, like they knew what was coming, like they were preparing to capture every flicker of tension, every twitch of the eye, every fracture in the mask. The audience was buzzing with expectation. You could feel it in the air, that electric pressure before a storm where everyone smiles, but nobody's breathing. Meghan Markle was about to walk out, not into a safe space, not into a puff-piece conversation, but into the lion's den. And Bill Maher, he was already sharpening his claws. Before we dive into what might be the most raw, scripted combustion of celebrity, ego, and media warfare on late-night television, hit that subscribe button. If you care about truth, power, and what happens when a woman used to controlling the narrative finally loses the script, you're going to want to see this through to the end. And if you're already here, drop a comment, because what unfolds tonight isn't just gossip, it's a reckoning. The intro music faded, cameras zoomed. Maher's voice was already curling with mischief. Tonight, the Duchess of Sussex joins us. Meghan Markle, actress, advocate, Hollywood lightning rod. A woman who has made just as many headlines as the royal family she left behind. The applause hit. Not wild, not cold, conflicted, polite. Meghan stepped out in a deep navy dress that shimmered like armor. Her smile was polished, like a peace treaty signed under duress. She waved, thanked the audience, and slid into the chair across from Maher. "Thanks for having me, Bill. I'm looking forward to this." That's what she said. But the way her hand adjusted the hem of her dress, the way her posture straightened at Maher's smirk, she was bracing. "Of course," Maher replied. "It's not every day we have royalty on this stage, or at least someone who used to be royalty until things got complicated." The studio chuckled. "Meghan didn't. I'm still very much myself, Bill," she said evenly. "Titles aren't the point." Maher leaned back, that signature smirk deepening. "Well, we'll get to the titles. But let's start here. How does it feel to be the most controversial royal since Diana?" Boom, the first crack. Meghan blinked once, then smiled, but the warmth didn't quite reach her eyes. "I don't see myself that way," she said, slow and deliberate. "I married the man I love. We tried to serve. We told our truth. That's all." "Your truth," Maher echoed, like it was a foreign word. "See, I've always thought truth was kind of singular. Either it happened or it didn't." The audience laughed nervously. A few claps. Meghan exhaled through her nose, controlled, regal, still holding the line. "When you've been subjected to a years-long smear campaign," she said, "you realize that context matters, that reality gets twisted. So sometimes, yes, there are different perspectives." Maher leaned in. "Let me stop you right there. You're saying the press twisted your reality. But didn't you sign a $100 million Netflix deal to tell your side? Weren't you in full control then?" Meghan's voice sharpened. "We told the parts that mattered. We didn't owe anyone every detail of our private lives." "But you made accusations," Maher shot back. "You said a royal asked about your unborn child's skin color. You said you were denied help while suicidal. You said your passport was taken, but then you flew to New York for a baby shower. Private jets, celebrity guests. So, which is it?" The audience inhaled as one. Meghan froze for half a beat. Then Bill, "I'm not going to sit here and have you cherry-pick headlines to undermine what was a deeply traumatic experience." "I'm not undermining anything," Maher said, voice steady. "I'm pointing out that if you're going to accuse an institution of racism and abuse, people are going to want clarity. You're not just a private citizen, you're a global figure." A flicker of fury passed through Meghan's eyes. "I didn't ask to be a symbol," she said. "I asked to be safe, to protect my family. And instead, I was vilified." "And yet," Maher said, "you're here, on TV again, telling the story again." Silence, not even nervous laughter this time. The temperature in the studio shifted. Meghan's jaw tightened. "We're here to talk about the work I'm doing now," she said, her voice clipped. "My foundation, my initiatives." Maher raised an eyebrow. "You're here to rehabilitate your image. Let's not pretend otherwise." Gasps from the front row. Meghan's publicist, standing just off stage, gestured wildly to a producer. "Move on. Cut to promo. Do something." But Maher ignored it. "I think what people struggle with," he said, "is that you want the perks of being royal without the scrutiny. You kept the titles, the fame, the fortune, but rejected the rules. That's not how it works. I gave up my country, Meghan shot back, voice trembling. I gave up my family, my home. I watched my husband unravel. I watched my father sell me out to tabloids. I've been called a manipulator, a liar, a narcissist. And you're sitting here saying, I didn't pay a price? Maher didn't flinch. You live in Montecito? You're worth millions. You're friends with Oprah? That's a price. Meghan's face cracked for the first time. Not a smile, not anger, just raw, unfiltered disbelief. You think money fixes trauma, she said. You think having wealth makes you immune from racism, from hatred, from lies. I think it makes your story harder to sell, Maher replied, especially when it's wrapped in self-pity and sound bites. At that, Meghan leaned forward, her eyes locked on his. You don't know me, she said, each word slow and deliberate. You know headlines, you know tabloids, you know the version of me they wanted you to see. I know what you've chosen to show the world, Maher said. Meghan looked toward the audience, her voice cracked. I came here to speak about healing, about work that matters. And instead, I'm back on trial. Another pause. Then she stood. I'm not going to sit here and be picked apart. Not again. A sudden movement backstage. Security stepped closer. Producers whispered urgently. Meghan's publicist was already walking toward her with a coat draped over one arm. Bill Maher didn't rise. He didn't apologize. He simply adjusted his mic and said, Ladies and gentlemen, Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Exit Strategies. A few in the crowd chuckled. Others gasped. Meghan turned around, her heels clicking. Hard on the studio floor. Just before exiting the frame, she looked back and said, You just proved exactly why we left. And then she was gone. The studio fell into stunned silence. No outro music, no witty snuff, just Bill Maher sitting alone, staring at the camera. As if daring America to decide whose truth had just been exposed. The air hadn't moved since she walked off stage. Not a word, not a whisper. The audience sat like statues staring at the spot where Meghan Markle had just vanished, leaving behind only her echo and a storm no PR team could spin away. Bill Maher broke the silence first, not with a joke, not even a smile. He just let the tension ride like a surfer, balancing on a tidal wave of backlash. Well, he finally muttered into the mic, adjusting his tie. That wasn't in the script. The control room was chaos. Producers scrambled to cut to commercial, but Maher didn't give them the cue. The director's voice crackled through the headset. He's staying live. He wants the smoke. Security escorted Meghan down the hallway as her publicist tried desperately to get signal for a crisis call. She wasn't crying, but her chest heaved with quiet fury, the kind that builds behind years of suppression, that dangerous volcanic kind back in the studio. Maher was already spinning back to the audience. Now look, he said. I know some of you are thinking that I went too hard, but let's not pretend that wasn't the most honest conversation she's ever had. The only problem, she didn't like the questions. Someone in the front row shouted, You ambushed. Maher raised a hand like a courtroom judge. She came to real time, not Good Morning America. I don't do tea and sympathy. I do truth. Another voice cut through, this one from the balcony. She deserved better. Maher stood. The cameras followed. No teleprompters now, no scripts, just fire. She deserves scrutiny. That's the price of fame. That's the cost of being a public figure who profits off pain while claiming to hate attention. Cut to the hallway. Meghan stopped walking. She had heard the eruption of applause from inside the studio. She turned her head slightly, just enough to catch the sound of Maher reclaiming the narrative. Her fingers balled into fists. Her publicist saw the change in her face. No, she said firmly. Do not go back in there. But Meghan was already walking, not briskly, not frantically, slowly. Like a general returning to a battlefield she refused to lose. Back inside, Maher was mid-sentence when a ripple ran through the audience. Heads turned, gasps, the camera pivoted, and there she was. Meghan Markle, standing just off the stage, fire in her eyes, fury in her veins. Maher turned, surprised, but only for a second. Back for round two, he asked with a grin. She stepped back into the light. No, she said. Back to finish what you started. The audience held its breath. She returned to her seat. No smile this time. No armor dot, just war. You accused me of profiting off pain, she began, her voice low and lethal. So let's talk about yours, Bill. How many careers have you built? By tearing others down, how many women have you ridiculed to stay relevant? Maher blinked. This isn't about me. It never is, right? It's always about the woman who dared to speak, who dared to challenge the narrative. You call it scrutiny. I call it obsession. He leaned forward. You're deflecting again. No, she snapped. I'm reclaiming. She turned to the audience. You all watched what just happened. You saw how quickly civility turned to interrogation, how asking for respect was seen as weakness, how telling your story makes you a target. This isn't just my story. It's what happens every day to women who refuse to be silenced. A murmur swept through the room. Maher wasn't finished. What about accountability? What about the inconsistencies? You said you were silenced, but you've been on every major network. You said your child was denied a title because of race, but the rules applied to all great-grandchildren of the monarch. Isn't that convenient? Meghan's jaw tightened. You think facts matter more than impact, than what it felt like? Feelings aren't facts. No, she said, but facts without empathy are just weapons. The audience exploded. Applause, standing ovation, a few boos in the back, but Meghan had shifted the room. For now, Maher paused, calculated then, struck. So, you're saying we should feel sorry for you? The Duchess in Montecito, the millionaire philanthropist who speaks truth to power from her 10-bedroom estate. I'm saying I was a human being begging for help in a system that didn't care whether I lived or died, she said, her voice breaking. And now I have to fight every day to protect my children from the same cruelty. That silence returned, heavy, suffocating. Maher looked down at his notes, then back up. Okay, he said quietly. Let's say everything you said is true. The pain, the racism, the trauma. Why stay in the spotlight? Why keep doing interviews? Why not disappear and heal in peace? She stared straight at him, unblinking, because silence is complicity. Because if I disappear, the people who lied win. Because someone has to say it first, so the next woman doesn't have to say it alone. Someone in the audience whispered, Diana. Maher heard it too. You're not Diana, he said. I never claimed to be, she replied, but I learned from her. She used the media to survive. I used it to fight back. Maher stood now too, the table between them like a line in the sand. So we're at war? She rose. No, you are. I'm just not running anymore. In that moment, the audience wasn't watching a celebrity interview. They were watching a revolution. The tension didn't break. It calcified, settled, like armor over every word that would follow. And the night wasn't over. No one sat back down, not really. Some audience members physically lowered themselves into their seats, that eerie quiet where you can hear people thinking, shifting, choosing sides, and at the center of it, two figures stood locked in an ideological duel. Framed by camera angles sharper than swords, Meghan Markle, Bill Maher. One stage, he just tilted his head slightly. Like a wolf sizing up an animal it didn't expect to fight back. You talk about using the media to fight back, he said, at last. But the thing about fighting back is, her voice low and controlled, but every syllable cut glass. You're still pretending this was about criticism, that this was about bad press. It wasn't. It was coordinated character assassination, and you know that. Turn to the audience like a professor delivering a final exam. She claims she was hunted, that the palace conspired against her, that the media wanted her gone, and yet she walked into the most powerful family in Europe with a global platform and emerged with more influence than ever. Does that sound like a victim to you? Gasps. A few people clapped. Meghan didn't flinch. She stepped forward, two matching. Him beat for beat, influence. She snapped. You think I wanted influence? I wanted safety. I wanted peace. I wanted to love my husband without being turned into a headline. I gave speeches about women's rights and was called manipulative. I smiled too much. I smiled too little. I was cold. And when I finally spoke out, the entire machine tried to silence me. But you weren't silenced, Maher said. You sat with Oprah. You made a documentary. You published a memoir. And yet, here I am, still having to explain myself. She was pacing now, not aimless, controlled. Every step a calculation. You want to talk about Diana? She said, eyes flashing. Let's. She was hunted by cameras until the night she died. And now I'm watching you and everyone else replay that same cruelty. On loop, just with newer technology. Maher's voice dropped an octave. Quiet, dangerous. You keep invoking Diana, but Diana never ran from hard questions. She gave answers. You say. People twist your words every time someone pushes back. She turned to him. Or maybe people are just terrified of what those words reveal. The audience was split. Suddenly, a producer's voice crackled in Maher's earpiece. Studio phones are blowing up. We're trending on Twitter. Hashtag Duchess Vesmar, he smirked. Of course they were. So tell me, Maher said, turning back to Meghan. Was this entire appearance just another viral moment to shape your next brand chapter? Meghan paused a long silence. And then she laughed. Not joyfully. You still think this is about branding, she said. You still think I came here to sell something, didn't you? Maher challenged. No, Bill. I came here to tell the truth. I knew you'd mock it. I just didn't realize how desperately you'd cling to your version of reality once mine didn't fit your script. You mean the reality where everyone else is wrong and you're always the victim? No, she said coldly. The reality where people like you are so scared of powerful women, you spend your entire platform trying to make us smaller. The momentum was now swinging in Meghan's direction. Maher felt it. He leaned on the table, recalibrating. You want to talk about powerful women? Fine, let's talk about accountability. The assistants who quit. The palace insiders who said working for you was hell. The applause stopped instantly. Meghan's face went still. You're bringing that up now? She said, voice low. Unproven allegations, anonymous sources, pushed by the very tabloid machine, you say. I shouldn't blame. Just answer the question, Maher said, not relenting. I did, she said through gritted teeth. I said it wasn't true. I said it was retaliation for speaking out. And the investigation, it never even published the findings. You think that's accountability? Or maybe the palace protected you? Her eyes narrowed. Do you really think the same institution that leaked false stories about me suddenly turned around and decided to shield me? Be honest, Bill. You just can't stomach the idea that a woman might have been mistreated and still found her voice. He opened his mouth, closed it. I'm done being good. I'm just finally being real. The audience erupted again. Security tensed. The energy had shifted from sharp to volatile. Suddenly, his eyes widened. He turned back to the audience, shaking his head. Apparently, King Charles' press secretary just issued a statement. Everyone froze. Maher squinted at the message on the cue card. They say, and, I quote, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex have made serious claims. The royal household is taking these matters seriously and will address them privately. Meghan let out a cold, hollow laugh. Privately, she said. After 5 years of being shredded publicly, of course. Maher looked at her, searching, then asked the one question nobody expected. Do you regret it? The audience went dead silent again. Meghan looked down, then slowly raised her eyes, locking them to his. No, she said. I regret staying quiet for so long. A beat, then another dot. And then someone clapped. Just one person, then another. Then a ripple of applause surged through the crowd, slow, but steady, like a wave building on the edge of a storm. Maher leaned back, arms folded. So what happens now? The reckoning begins. It didn't feel like a talk show anymore. The studio was thick with something no stage crew could cut through. Not tension, not drama, conviction. The kind that grabs you by the collar and refuses to let you blink. The kind that doesn't care about your ratings or retweets. It was the look in Meghan's eyes. The silence before she answered. Bill Maher blinked first. A flicker of unease broke his smirk, but he steadied himself. His career had been built on confrontation. Tonight felt different. Not because of the backlash, not because of the cameras, but because, for the first time in years, he wasn't sure he was in control anymore. He leaned forward, elbows on the desk, voice suddenly quieter. Not smug, not sarcastic, almost curious. So, what does that reckoning look like? Meghan didn't miss a beat. It looks like truth that doesn't need permission. It looks like women who've been told to shut up, finally deciding not to. The audience hung on every word. It looks like this moment, she said, motioning to the air between them. Being replayed in homes around the world, and young girls realizing they don't have to be palatable to be powerful. You think this was power? Mar challenged softly, walking off, coming back, taking shots, giving monologues. No, she said, this was survival and clarity. She turned toward the crowd. For years, I thought if I stayed quiet, it would protect me. That if I played nice, followed protocol, smiled when they told me I could hold on to myself. A pause. I lost that version of me. But tonight, when I walked off this stage, I didn't walk away from the fight. I walked into it. One of the producers, a seasoned veteran who'd worked hundreds of live shows, whispered into his mic, "We're not cutting. Let it ride." Something was happening in real time. Bigger than gossip. A subtle nod of respect, hidden beneath layers of cynicism. "Let's say everything you've said tonight is true," he said, cautiously. "What now? What's the next move?" Meghan exhaled deeply. "I stop apologizing for making people uncomfortable. And I start making them reckon with why they're uncomfortable in the first place. A few claps, then more then standing ovation. But this time, it wasn't about being right. Or winning, it was about being heard." Mar held up a hand to quiet the room. "Let me ask you one last thing," he said. "Are you still the Duchess of Sussex?" The question was deceptively simple, but everyone in the room knew what it meant. Was she still a royal, still loyal, still tethered to the title that started it all? Meghan didn't blink. "I'm still a woman who married the man I love. I'm still a mother who would burn the world down to protect her children. And I'm still someone who understands that titles don't mean anything if you have to lose yourself to keep them." Boom. The audience erupted again. Not performative, not polite, raw. And then, just as the applause began to swell, Mar stood up. He walked around the desk, no cards, no script, just him and her. He extended his hand, a gesture not of surrender, not of defeat, of recognition. Meghan hesitated, then shook it. No smile, no need for one. A moment passed between them, one not captured by any line or quip, the kind of moment that lives in replays and rewatches and long Twitter threads titled "The Night Everything Changed." Mar looked to the audience, then to the camera. "Well," he said, "I think we've just witnessed one of the most honest conversations this show has ever had." He looked back at Meghan. "You didn't run, and I didn't flinch. That's how it should be." Meghan nodded. Truth isn't always pretty, but it's necessary. And then she walked off, not storming out this time, walking deliberate, shoulders high, not escaping exiting. The audience stood, every person, no prompting, no cue cards. Mar sat back at the desk as the music faded in, but he didn't cut to commercial. He stared directly into the camera. "And if you've got the guts to sit in discomfort, maybe it'll be bigger than you, too." Then, softer, just enough sincerity to feel human. "You think more people should have heard what she said tonight. You know what to do. Share it. Subscribe. Don't let it get buried like everything else that matters." He smiled finally, the right kind. "We'll see you next week." The screen went black, but not the world. The clips exploded across platforms. Before the credits even finished, #Duchess vs Mar trended globally. Think pieces were drafted. YouTubers uploaded reaction videos, mid-edit. Talk shows debated it before the East Coast feed even ended. And Meghan, she wrote in silence as her SUV pulled away from HBO studios. No phone in hand, no team barking strategies, just her finally still. Finally seen and in the final wide shot as the camera panned back on the darkened studio. A single card appeared on screen. For every voice told it was too much, be louder. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Was it redemption or just retaliation? And what would you have done if you were in Meghan's shoes? If this confrontation shook you, hit that like, share, and subscribe, because next week, the storm returns, and it won't be pretty.